To begin the annual meeting, I am Jerry Rampelt, and I am
Oh, there I am. Okay.
chair of the board of Columbus Outdoor Pursuit.
Why does the background look like that? I don't know.
Arlene, you need to mute up.
Sorry.
That's okay. Good to see
I don't
you.
know what I'm doing. What?
What the hell is this screen doing? Now down here, there's a microphone. Click on that. Nobody can hear.
Look to the bottom left. You'll see.
I got you. I took care of it.
And we have, under our governance documents, we have an annual meeting, and it's always in mid to late October. And our fiscal year is October 1 to September 30th. It kind of coincides with our events. Jeff has just put up the agenda. Jeff, I wanted to quickly introduce the board members who are here. Mary Ellen O'Shaughnessy is the vice president. She's waving. Trish Kovacs is the secretary of the board. Lindsay Updike is treasurer. And I can't see the rest of the pictures here. Let me see if I can get it back on. Penny Marshall is on the board. Jeff, I can't get all of the photos.
Oh.
Okay, thank you. Mike Michael is, he's the director of the Howard Erie Trail Adventure Ride in May. We have, as I scroll down here.
Cape-Harts.
Maureen and Jerry Capehart. Maureen is the Zoba director. Did I miss anyone, Jeff? I'm looking here on the list.
No. We're missing a few.
Yeah. But I mean, in terms, did I miss any in terms of who are here?
No, that's what. Oh, wait, there is a second page, maybe.
Yeah.
No, iPhone Narts. I don't know who that is. So.
Yeah, and my wife is on. She's Toby. She is the food stop coordinator for GOBA, and I'm her assistant. Okay. The first thing we're doing on the agenda is one of the wonderful things we get to do every year. We have 2 awards that we give out. The most recent one is the Charlie Pace Volunteer of the Year Award. And Charlie was the volunteer director of Tosser for, Mary Ellen, was it 24, 25 years? Just a wonderful person.
It was like 50 years. Well, it was like 50 years.
It was all about 1 or 2 of them.
Okay, all
exactly.
the ones. And we created the board created this award before Charlie passed, and Mary Ellen was the one to let him know that there's an award that was named in his honor, and it's for the volunteer of the year. And that's for somebody who did something outstanding in the past year. And Jeff is going to introduce this year's recipients.
Yes. When I inherited GOBA and we were rebuilding after COVID, I sort of began to, because I asked for help for things, began to break the proverbial model. It's always been a closely held secret where GOBA would go. But at my first GOBA, I said, hey, where do you want to go? And I heard a lot of people say, hey, far Northeast Ohio, never been to Northeast Ohio. And then other people would say, Jeff, it can't be done. It can't be done. A woman approached me afterward and indicated that she'd done lots of GOBAs. She lived up in Ashtabula County, and that she'd even presented a proposal to the management of GOBA in past years to try and get it up there. She wanted to help. So I digested that. And as I scouted the region and began to start to put some host communities together, I reached out to Arlene Rice. And she convened a group of GOBA folks around her kitchen table. And I kind of laid the proverbial fuzzy plan in front of them, and they all said, yeah, it's doable. And the big piece of this was that their hometown, Jefferson, the county seat of Ashtabula, would host the first 3 days of GOBA. That's a big amount, but it's a small town with not a whole lot of resources. little did I know the extent that they would, that the help that would come. So Arlene agreed to lead that effort for those 3+ days of GOBA in Jefferson and Ashtabula County as a whole. I went up there in early December, and she convened the first community meeting. And most communities might have, a dozen people at most, of public service, the firemen, maybe the mayor, the Chamber of Commerce. She said, Jeff, I think we're going to get like maybe 24, maybe 30 people. I'm going to get a room at the library. As these people streamed in, that room was packed. They had come from, from cities as far as Ashtabula and Conneaut. And when they left, she walked up and said, Jeff, 84 people signed this sign-in sheet. 84 people. And I called Jerry and when I left, and he said, Jeff, that means one of two things. Either they're going to knock it out of the park, or there's not much to do on a Wednesday night in Jefferson, Ohio in December. So maybe a little of both, but they definitely knocked it out of the park. Enter Elliot, Arlene's husband. I did not know Elliot had actually, been a volunteer as a SAG driver, a ham operator on GOBA in years past, but he knew the creature inside and out as well. So as Arlene began to coordinate, every key community leader in that city and that county, she'd say, well, we're having trouble with well water and such. I've dispatched Elliot, or Elliot's talking to the city manager, or Elliot's saw him at the Rotary meeting this morning. So they were so tied at the hip, and I think they must have known and been so deeply embedded in that community and that county. So between the two of them, they coordinated our 3 days of camp, all the meals that we provided, which was a challenge, entertainment, all the public service support, even some of the rest stops and lunch stops that were on those 3 days of riding. We had stops at 2 wineries and a wine tasting event. I mean, blasphemy in GOBA terms. It was welcome to adulthood. Yes, Mary Ellen. So it is with great joy and gratitude that I had nominated Arlene and Elliot Rice as our recipients of the Charlie Pace Memorial Volunteer Award for this year.
And for the award, their names will be on the plaque that hangs in our office. And they also will receive a plaque in the mail as a thank you for their outstanding service. It made the first part of GOBA, the rides, the facilities, the food and everything, just immensely enjoyable, extremely well organized, and we just can't thank the two of them enough.
Now, are they still on that they could make a comment, or?
Could you go back to the large screen with all the faces?
They could unmute, and where'd they go? Oh my God, we just did all this nice talk about them.
They were unmuted before.
Oh my God. Well, if they come back on, okay, well, we'll snip this out and mail all the nice things we said about them to them.
Well, I don't know where they went.
Yeah.
Right as you were finishing, Jeff, they heard everything. Right as you were finishing,
Okay.
their screen, they went away. So I don't know, but they did hear all the. Oh, there they
There
are.
they are.
There they are.
They heard everything.
Well,
Great.
you can unmute,
Now it's
Arlene.
your turn.
Let me do it for you. Ask to unmute. Oh no, you got to do it. I bet you it was that dang Verizon, wasn't it?
Probably. You know how it was up here. It was a nightmare. It still is. They blamed you guys, but it's still going on. Okay.
Do you have, Arlene and Elliot, do you have any comments you'd like to make?
I remember when we had a picnic here in August, and Elliot's a good storyteller. He's much better than me. But he said how we were thinking, gee, it'd be nice to come up here some year. And here Jeff says, yeah, we're coming this year and we're going to spend 3 days in Jefferson. And we were like frozen in shock. And he assumed that was, yeah, we'll do it.
Well, Arlene and Elliot, again, thank you so much. Please tell, there was one thing when you were getting a little down on yourself or frustrated that first day, and I think I pulled one of you to the side and said, look out at all those tents, and that's a massive success. But I think your fair people told you a little known factoid about the size of our group compared to something
Yes.
else. Tell us that.
To the Civil War. Remember the Civil War? We haven't had that many people at the Jefferson Fairgrounds since, what year was it?
1862.
When
Civil War.
this was a Civil War encampment, and there are pictures available in archives. And the tents were a little different, and maybe the food was a little less gourmet, and there was not a wine tasting. Okay, and we wore spandex, they wore something else, but essentially it was the same. Okay. Yeah, that was it was a great time. I sure learned a lot, I'll tell you that.
Thanks again, and let's submit a picture to your historical society and pop it up there with the Civil War people.
What was fun is the end of the ride. I went because I had organized a little clapping team at the end, because I realized as a former rider who's a little bit slow and comes in really tired, it's really nice to get the little woo woo, good job. It's corny, but it's fun. And I went out there, and every rider was just smiling and just so positive. I thought
it was raining.
yes, too, they didn't care. That's the thing about Goba riders, though. And it was awesome. It was truly awesome.
That made it worth it.
We were at Willoughby today because I have I've got some stuff going on with my back right now. We went to my physical therapy, and Elliot said, let me take you through Todd Field for a little deja vu. So we did.
Well, we have every year, there are always plenty of volunteers that could qualify for a volunteer of the year. There's so many people that give so much of themselves. And but this year, you guys really stood above the crowd and really helped us stabilize and present a fantastic Goba. So thank you again. And we look forward to getting you another plaque and getting your name up in the office. So.
And tell the story, because we need more volunteers. You know, that Columbus Outdoor Pursuits is based on volunteers. And
I had a little post-traumatic stress at first, though. So
well, of course, everybody does. But that's when you know it's going to be an excellent event. You know, so if you didn't have that, it might be a dud.
Okay, Arlene and Elliot, we thank you again so much for 3 wonderful days.
Our pleasure. We'll let you guys get on with the rest of your meeting. Awesome. Thank you so much. It was great meeting so many wonderful people. It was fun. You guys rock. It was great.
Yep.
Okay.
God bless you all.
Take care.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
The second award that we have is the Ron Isley Memorial Award, and this is for lifetime achievement as a volunteer. And this year's recipient is not at the meeting, but it is Ron Schroeder. Ron, for over 30 years, was a photographer on Goba. And so you Goba riders, he has probably taken your picture at some point in the past. He's an accomplished photographer, and he captures year after year the essence of Goba and its riders. He was able to gain access to the roofs of buildings by talking to custodians and then doing aerial photographs of campsites. He also will be on the road and catching riders as they ride through cornfields in rural Ohio. I met Ron in 2014 when that was my first year as a volunteer photographer, and discovered how he found unique and creative ways to photograph riders. It's a pleasure to have Ron's name added to the plaque as a Ron Isley Award winner. The plaque, as you can see, is there. It's the one with many names. We're actually on to the second Ron Isley plaque, and we have 2 hanging in the office. But again, this is a lifetime achievement, and the only thing I have to say is that I would get the pictures the past few years to review them, and Ron would send in usually about 1,500 to 2,000 pictures, and they were great. And the photographs are then displayed on our SmugMug account, and you can pick. It will miniaturize the file. You can get it on your smartphone. It's goba.smugmug.com. Goba.smugmug.com. It's there by each year, where we have photos. And you can tap some dots. I think it's in the upper left-hand corner. And for no charge, you can download the digital image. All right, we thank Ron for the as this year's recipient of the Ron Isley Award. All right, I became the president of this board in April of 2018 when I was vice president with no intention of being president, and the president resigned. So I said, well, I'll step in until we find a president. And if I do my arithmetic correctly, 2018 to 2023 has been over 5 years. Mary Ellen took over for a brief stint when I thought my wife and I were going to move to Colorado, and we changed our minds. Though there were moments in 2020 when I thought to myself, the pandemic hit, we canceled GOBA, we canceled Tosser, we were trying to have events with 10 people or fewer. We were doing Zoom training sessions during the winter. And I would sometimes sit there and think, am I going to be the last president of Columbus Outdoor Pursuits because of our financial situation? With that, I'll turn this over to Lindsay Updike, who is the treasurer of the organization. She's going to give you an overview of our financial situation.
Thanks, Jerry. All right, so as Jerry kind of introed into the financial report, our fiscal year end does end September 30th. And to kind of piggyback what Jerry was saying about COVID did hit us along with all the other nonprofits out there. And there were questions about, how we can make it through. It's safe to say that we made it through COVID and we have recovered from, those couple of years. And it was through Jeff being able to, forward think on some of these things and from donations and contributions from all of our members, which were greatly appreciated. So just to kind of put a little bit of context into that. So our revenue in 2020 was around $260,000. In 2021, it was $185,000. So you can just see that kind of drop there with COVID. And then now in 2023, we can report that our revenue was around $560,000 for the fiscal year. So you can say that we've recovered back to pre-COVID times, if you will. And, most of our revenue comes from GOBA. So that's, we try, I think Jeff can speak to this, but our registration for GOBA, we like to run it at a lower price to just, cover our expenditures. We offer an affordable option for people, and we're probably one of the cheaper bike tours in the country. And we like to provide that for, all of our riders. Some of the expenses that we have throughout the year, our insurance policy is a big one. We only have one staff member, Jeff, at the moment, who does an amazing job. And then, just things that go along with GOBA, like porta potties, shower trucks, contracted labor, some of those support services like medical, traffic, security, all those things come with a cost. So we do run our organization pretty tight. And so the revenue kind of reflects the expenditures. And so at the end of this year, our expenditures were around $430,000, kind of referencing all those things that I said prior. And then I think we're going to talk a little bit about the Columbus Foundation and some fundraising, if anybody doesn't have any questions. All right. Jerry, do you want to talk a little bit about that, or do you want me to?
Yeah, I do. Okay. A couple of things. Lindsay mentioned that the revenue in 2021 is $185,000. $85,000 of that 185 were donations by participants and members. We sent a letter out saying things are dire here. Not only did we cancel everything in 2020, we had a slimmed down GOBA, which we called WOBA, Western Ohio Bicycle Adventure, in 2021 with about 240 people on it. We did not have TOSSERV in 2020. We did have it in 2021. Again, these were events that didn't have the normal numbers that we have. 2022 obviously was a better year. We had 800 on GOBA. This year we had 1,067 people on GOBA. So those registrations have recovered. Jeff is going to talk more about Tosser. But we mentioned Charlie Pace Award. Many years ago, Charlie Pace made a $20,000 donation to Columbus Outdoor Pursuits. And that $20,000 was put in a very conservative, safe fund at the Columbus Foundation. It was never touched. And when we did tap into it for an emergency, and the emergency was this time with COVID, it was up to $74,000. That fund now has $19,000 in it. And the goal is we're going to have a fundraising plea this autumn. You'll be receiving a letter, either electronically or in paper in the near future. And one of the goals is to start to replenish that fund again, because there's going to be emergency at some point in the future again. And the second thing is we need to hire some extra staff. We will have a part-time person coming on in late November, a person who is highly technical, skilled, and is going to do a lot of the things, take that off Jeff's plate. A lot of time, Jeff spends a lot of time. Each time somebody cancels, each time somebody buys something, Jeff has to go into the system and make all those records recorded. That's going to be taken off his plate. We get a scat of emails and phone. We still answer the phone here, and the person's going to answer those particular things. So, but we had 2.5 employees when COVID hit. And because we have fewer than 4 full-time employees, we are not in the state unemployment system. So we had 2 full-time employees who volunteered. We had 2 employees, 1.5 in terms of the time that they worked, just volunteered to be furloughed, and didn't come back, and they didn't come back until we had our head above water. So I also want to mention Tony Wells. Tony Wells has created 20 years ago the Wells Foundation, and this past year we were a recipient of essentially a free new website. The Wells Foundation helps charitable organizations. They do a lot of training of executive directors and staff in charities. They also do they do websites at a very reasonable price. But we were the recipient of, and it's not quite finished yet. The new front face is on. And it's one of these things in life. Tony told me, he said, you're a computer person who's working on your websites in Ukraine. I said, in Ukraine? And he said, yeah. He said she works in a bunker, and then she comes out at night and gets an internet connection and sends us what the changes she's made in the website. And I just was astounded by that. Jeff, I'll turn it back to you for the activity report.
Okay. I wanted to mention that if you have questions, there is a chat function here in Zoom. And maybe Lindsay, I know I put you on the spot, but maybe you or Jerry or somebody, if you see something pop up, feel free to interrupt and fire away. But anybody, please feel free to ask questions as we go along. I'm going to try and very quickly just paint an overview of our activities from this past year and leave it at that. So, oh my goodness, it doesn't go to the next thing. How do I do that? Do you see the next slide that says 736 active members? Whoop. Do you see that? Are people seeing the?
No, Jeff.
Okay, let me try again then.
We're not seeing anything yet, just the people.
Okay.
There, now we do.
Okay, I'm just going to leave it here and hopefully that'll work here. So our membership remains kind of similar. It's been growing a little bit, come back to some reasons why, but about 736 active members at this point. There are a couple hundred of those are lifetime members and have a long legacy that we inherited 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago. And we need to sort of do a little hygiene on that and reach out to those folks and see if they're still with us, if you catch my drift. The big numbers is that we had 15,000 plus participant experiences, meaning if an individual registered for GOBA, that was one participant experience. If they, were a Tuesday night rider, that was one. If they came back the second week, or we kind of put in some numbers, some averages for how much people come back on our weeknight rides. But the important number is that we had 35,000 event days that basically were covered by our insurer. So if you came on GOBA, that was 7 event days that we provided. The last year we had about 17,000. So we increased that number significantly. And it is not necessarily because we raised GOBA up a little bit, but I'll come to, it's our weeknight rides, and I'll come back to that. But again, that's a heck of a lot of experiences each day that we are providing for people. And we're excited about that and proud of that number. Okay, so major tours. Are you all seeing this now?
Yes.
So I'm going to go chronologically with what we did. We provided the second annual OTA, Ohio Erie Trail Adventure, 26 participants. Mike Michael is our ride leader there and does a fantastic job, and we're probably going to offer 2 of those next year. Let me just remind everybody that through the proceeds from GOBA predominantly, and TOSRV and COP as a whole, all one umbrella, we provided $1 million worth of grants to the Ohio to Erie Trail Foundation during the development of this trail. It is one of the premier destination trails in the country now. There are probably 20 plus commercial tours, maybe 30, I don't know, but our OTA we're positioned it to be a value-based experience. Folks get their own hotel room, but it's limited to 40, 45 people. And these 2 years that we've done it, people have really enjoyed it. And to a T, I've been getting, queries about when's that going to be, for the last 2 or 3 months. So people are already planning and looking forward to next year. So nice success with that new tour that we added 2 years ago. GOBA, 34th annual. You've heard some of the stories. Almost 1,100 participants from, I can't see my number, but 37 states is my memory. Again, we were in a region of the state that we really built it from scratch. The bottom, we've never been to any of these communities, never been to that region. And I think, our survey, or our customer feedback survey at the end, 95% of our people said they would recommend GOBA to a friend. That's an amazing number. And we have a wonderfully loyal following. Some people, moaned and gave me a little grief during the week about 1 or 2 of the hills I put in there. But, everybody had a fantastic experience in some new communities. We have a solid, I have very little to do with it in some regards. We have these volunteer leaders who take big chunks of some of the deliverables. Tom Biltz does our campsite management, and Dwayne Wheeler is the route meister, and Jeff Piron and between Jerry and Toby do lunch stops and rest stops, and we have folks that do the SAG drivers and communication and ham teams and a medical team. So just a fantastic group of people that I've inherited, if you will. So I'm deeply grateful. This remains the bread and butter of COP's events and operating income. And based on the success we had this year from a financial standpoint, that's where we're trying to allocate that money to add that much needed staff, part-time person, to continue to rebuild Columbus Outdoor Pursuits and to hopefully replenish our rainy day fund. So a great year for GOBA. And I won't hint about next year, but it's well on its way, and we've got a few new twists and turns in here, and maybe one new community, but I hope you're hungry for donuts. There's my hint. Okay, Zoba. Zoba continues to be COP's best kept secret. And I want to thank Maureen and Jerry Capehart for leading this ride, Maureen particularly. It is a wonderful experience. We had 45, 47 participants this year. You know, COP in the past has been a very siloed organization, a lot of attention to TASRV, a lot of attention to GOBA, a lot of attention to all, you know, the boating and the hikings, and poor Zoba just sort of fell through the cracks. But it's a fantastic event, and we're trying to sort of elevate it, bring it under the umbrella with all that we're doing with our marketing efforts, and continue to drive this thing forward to get a little bit more participation. We'll continue to promote that, but again, want to thank Maureen. That goes one way across the state, different route every year. TASRV. We all love TASRV. 62nd annual. It's the oldest, longest running bike tour in the country. It is ground zero for all of the bike touring industry as we know it in the US at this point. Yes, it continues to fade some, perhaps a victim of its own success, because now all the people that used to come to TASRV have gone back and created their own events in all nooks and crannies and corners of this country. But I'll speak more specifically about that in a little bit more detail after reviewing the rest of our major activities. Okay. Here are other significant activities. The cycling series, we used to call these patch rides, budget rides, $2, you get a map, you get a patch. But they were primarily designed to train, to lead people up to train for TASRV, before TASRV, and then a handful of them at the end of the season to train for the Columbus Fall Challenge. With TASRV moving and CFC sort of dormant, we reduced this year we still have some people that come do these things regularly. There's still the premier cycling routes around central Ohio, you know, in the outskirts, and they're worthy of being promoted and ridden. This year we reduced the focus to 7 rides, and we changed the scheduling to help maybe attract and people to them, be a lead up to people who are training for Pelotonia, the big elephant in the room in our community. So we did get some people, you know, as a result of that. And we also returned this year the KCBC, the Knox County Bike Challenge, to the end of the year, offered it as a full service tour with snacks and a lunch. And we had a very nice response, although it was the first cold day of the year. We had good registration numbers, but to a T, everybody said, you need to take your rides and make them a little more full service. This is fantastic. Thank you for this. So we're going to talk and hopefully talk about how we can make these things a little bit more full service next year, highlight that one-day experience. We need some help with that, but I look at the screen and I see Trish Kovacs and Mark Gibson and Penny Marshall were just, you know, fantastic volunteers that really have driven this series the past couple of years. So hats off to you. And for every one of those rides raised, you know, almost $1,000, you know, people paying either 10 or 20 bucks. So, and they were volunteer driven by Trish and Mark and Penny and whoever else. So that was just a little icing on the cake, and it had an impact. So thank you all for what you do there. If anybody's interested in helping with that group, we're going to be talking soon. I've mentioned Pelotonia sort of once or twice. We had a real nice partnership with them, and I skipped over the weekly rides. So let me go there.
Yeah,
because that involves Pelotonia.
I'm going to interrupt you for a second. Last winter, Jeff said to me, you know, we ought to offer free liability insurance to all these weekly rides. And I had to remind Jeff that you can't give away liability insurance. It costs us money. And he had this idea and he said, well, here's what I'm thinking. We give them, they register in our system. That means they're covered by the liability insurance. We give them free liability insurance. And then we ask them to each rider to make a $20 donation for the season, for the whole season, to cover the liability insurance. I said, okay, we'll roll the dice on it. Well, folks, we had more revenue come in by the riders donating $20 than the increase in our liability insurance from going from 8 to 23 rides. So it ended up not costing us some money, but there's something else that we did. And Jeff can talk about this more. If you're looking for a weekly ride now, you can go to one place and there's 23 rides. You don't have to sit there on Google and search and try to figure out where's there a ride near me. The second thing is, we normally would train about 45 ride leaders every spring. We trained over 100 this year. So Jeff, I'll turn it back to you.
Thanks. You hit the highlights of my notes. Last year or two, we had 8 regular weekly recurring rides. This year, 23. You know, when I came to Columbus 25 years ago, COP was it. It was the one place you went to find your rides. Now, in the last 20 years, all these loose groups have come up. We've got email, we've got social media. You have your little group of, weekday, retirees. You can make jerseys. You can make 5 or 10 jerseys with your club name on it for nothing. And when this was starting to happen, 15 years ago, I was like, how come we don't have a central clearinghouse where we go to? I know when I go back to Richmond, Virginia, I go to one place and I see everything. And I know that's the case for many communities across the country. Now, when I walked in to Pelotonia, in the winter and was talking some about attracting people to what we had to offer, the Pelotonia guy looked at me. He goes, the one unique thing you have that's more valuable than anything is your insurance. He goes, we cannot push anybody to any rides because we're not insured. And I said, well, we have insurance. So he said, I'll send you my biggest team leaders. You get them trained and get their rides up on your calendar. Done. So our trainings then overflowed. And what it did was it opened up these rides to, the Wheels of Color, the COPC ride, the Black Girls Do Bikes, and the morning, the Monday morning retirees group, who used to be Westerville Club. So, again, to what Jerry said, one-time registration, it's easy. You register once, you're covered for the Monday night ride all year. You could go in and register for multiple at a time. It takes 1 minute. And here's the thing. We then communicated with these riders on a weekly basis with our list of rides, but also threw in 1 or 2 other rides in the community that might be of interest. Oh, by the way, the Top of Ohio is coming up. Oh, by the way, our friends over in Maryville have a covered bridge ride you might be interested in this week. So all of a sudden, people were seeing our communication, our list as being of value and wanting to be on it. Now, we don't necessarily want to claim or own these groups, but really rather support them with our insurance and our communication. So now we have this clearinghouse, and it's going to get bigger next year, where people can go and say, oh, there's a slow rolling group that rides just on the trails, on Wednesday morning. Oh, there's a bunch of rivet heads that are going to do a fast ride somewhere else. People can find their people now, and it's all sort of under our umbrella. And we're glad to be able to support this and build this sense of community without trying to have ownership of everything. I want to put a big shout out to Steve Tippett and Lindsay, who basically, as volunteers, every week sent out that weekly update to all the riders who are registered. And Lindsay sent out the list of all the riders every week to all the ride leaders. So, so if a ride leader was carrying this with the PDF of the ride list on there that they gotten on email, their emergency contacts and names of their registered riders were in their back pocket on the ride. You know, technologies can be actually pretty cool sometimes. It doesn't have to be too draconian. So this has been a wonderful success for us, and we hope that it will continue to grow. Speaking of Pelotonia, I just want to point out there that because of these kinds of conversations, that they actually reached out to us and said, you know, we went to them and said, you know, we need help, you know, drawing people into all the things we do and offer. And they said, well, we need help with safety and rider education, et cetera. And so it's been an ongoing conversation for 2+ years with them, like it's never been before. It's a totally different vibe with them these days. But they called and said, you know, can you provide a SAG support team, you know, on the bike to support our riders on our 25 and 50-mile route? Yeah, sure. So there's a picture. We had, I think, a dozen that we split up in teams of 3 over the course of 4 waves of 1,000 people each. And, you know, we carried tires and tubes and tools, and, you know, we did everything from seeing pedals fall off to handing out some electrolyte pills, to my wife handing out cookies that she'd baked, to, you know, to encouraging, to fixing rubbing brakes, to, you know, it was a very positive thing, and they enjoyed seeing this level of support on the road, and it's just strengthening our partnership as we move forward. So just for the people out there, I want you to know that the relationship with Pelotonia continues to grow. Now, the last of our areas here that we also have boating, but I'm gonna come to that later. The hiking and backpacking group, led by our fearless Mary Ellen there in the picture, but also a big thanks to Judith Mitchell, who I'm not sure if she's on the call, Judith Fasone, Penny Marshall, Steve Cole, a lot of a core group that got together at last year's winter getaway. They created this winter getaway that went up and took over the lodge in wherever it was, Wilderness Lodge in Western Pennsylvania.
Yes.
Did a little skiing, a little slopping around in the mud, and chopped some wood, and had communal meals, and said, hey, let's plan the year. And they planned, you know, some backpacking trips and hiking, and they brought back the 21 challenge, which was a series of, I forget how many, 9, 6, 8, 9 hikes that went from 3 miles and
Started
increased.
with plenty, yeah,
3 miles, 3 miles more each month at a different location around Central Ohio, and culminated in a couple longer weekends, the last couple where they you know, got a campsite and had a communal camp, and then the hike and a communal camp afterwards. But it culminated in the 21-mile challenge at Zaleski in September. So there were 116 participants. I don't know how many unique in that, but again, just a very positive reintroduction and little stimulus and you know, a flame under the backpacking and hiking group. And I also want to mention that we offered 2 bike packing trips. Penny Marshall and Stephen Cole led basically an introduction series in, I want to say it was May and June, where there were 2 seminars where we partnered with the Trek store, and people came in and they laid out the gear and said, here's what you need, and here's how you pack it, and here's what to look for. And they even had a practice ride, come bring your gear, loaded bike, and we'll ride a loop today. And then it culminated a couple weeks later in an overnight trip. And there were, I think, about 14, 16, 20 people, something, but it was a nice group, and it was a very nice thing to sort of offer. And then there was a follow-up to that last weekend where there were 6 or 7 folks that went down and did the same thing without all the pre-training, but basically setting the stage to try and continue to offer this sort of thing in the future. So that was it. Again, I'll come back to boating later. I'm going to come back to Tazriff. I want to acknowledge and thank Trish Kovacs, who really spearheaded and led the implementation of the Charlie Pace Memorial Bench in Yoctangi Park in Chillicothe. We've been collecting some money into a Charlie Pace Memorial Fund for a couple of years now. And I think we had said we wanted to get a bench. And, Trish, basically made it happen and worked with the Parks and Rec down there to actually pay for and get the bench, but also then to get a plaque on it in memory of Charlie Pace. And I'm going to try and read it in memory of, we kind of unveiled, we didn't have the actual metal plaque, but it's now been installed, for Tozrov. We had a paper plaque, people tied ribbons on it, but I want to read it. In memory of Charlie Pace, who with genuine warmth and an easygoing manner was tour director of the tour of the Scioto River Valley from 1967 to 2012. The renowned 2-day, 210-mile bicycle tour from Columbus to Portsmouth and return drew thousands of cyclists from across the nation. So we were able to get that done this year. And thank you, Trish, for leading that. Now,
Could I add something, Jeff?
please.
Yeah, I just want to let everyone know that Greg Seipel designed the plaque, and he was the first rider who rode Tozrov in 1962 with his dad. And I also want to say the guy we worked with, Bill Bonner at Chillicothe Parks and Rec, was so wonderful, very helpful. When we asked if we could put it right there by that pretty bridge, he said fine. So I really appreciated their support.
Again, thanks
That's
so
it.
much. When I kind of first came to town, I rode a few of them, but I did a lot of volunteering there at Yoctangi Park because Charlie asked, and any of us who were in his orbit were blessed to be so. So it's good memory. So now Tozrov. Everybody knows that numbers have gone down, and there's always lots of chatter about why, and you ought to do this, you ought to do that. Well, they're going down because you moved it off to Mother's Day. They're going down because it's in the fall now. So we felt that it was important for us to send out an open letter, which is on our website. And if you go to the homepage and go up there to, I think it says news and update or news and resources, the letter's right there when you click there. We posted it on social media because that's a great forum where people talk and say a lot of things about Tozrov that may or may not be accurate. We wanted to level set and try and put the facts and the current condition of Tozrov and the landscape of Tozrov kind of out there so that everybody was on the same page, if you will, as we talk about how and if we modify it moving forward or what we do to it, whatever. So Tozrov has been managed by our organization really since its inception. And some people say, oh, well, when they took it over a few years ago. So we have known that the participation has been in decline for 20 plus years. I mean, a very noticeable, precipitous decline. The simple scapegoats in recent years have been the change of the date, the change of the start location out of the State House to Canal Winchester. And we just want to say that the noticeable decline preceded these changes by 10 to 15 years. So there's one thing. If you read the letter, you'll see some more stuff about some of the facts about the downtown starting location or the May to September thing. But Portsmouth also, during this last iteration of changing it to the fall, they basically said, look, we've got our hands full in May with Shawnee State graduation, local high school. They're a growing regional festival town, and that they're kind of saying you're not quite big enough for us to bend over backwards for anymore. So we welcome you to come in the fall, please. So there's a few things. Now, the important part of this letter is really about the rider demographics and the satisfaction. And we did a real deep dive on the ridership and the numbers back in about 2015. And it revealed that as the riders were aging out, they were not being replaced by younger riders. And if they were coming, a younger person would come and they do it once and go away. So they check the box. This past year, 2023, 67% of Tazra riders were age 55 plus. So many younger riders might attend Tazra, but don't return. They just check the box. And these riders, many of them that are doing it now and in this fall iteration of it, they say, oh, we love it. We love the change. And it's you provided wonderful support and a great lunch and a great party at the end. And, our Portsmouth friends at the end are, put on a very nice party for us now. But they don't find that experience compelling enough or strong enough to return, and there are other deterrents that sort of keep them away. And I want to remind people of this: of the 350 people we had this year, 200 did the one-day option in some form or another, and only 150 rode down and back. So people are, and we're seeing this across the industry as a whole, that people are looking for, they're not doing multi-day things unless it's a week-long tour, perhaps, or some other well-established thing like a hilly 100 or something. So we've heard that the route's boring, uninspiring, that it didn't feel safe. 40 miles of our route is on 55-mile-an-hour 2-lane roads. We pay over $5,000 to the Ohio State Highway Patrol to have a presence, and we could really, quite honestly, we probably need about $15,000 worth of law enforcement to keep it safe. There are only 3 roads into Portsmouth. All of them provide a lot of anxiety for tour directors over the last 20 years. The nature of the traditional route has changed dramatically and for the worse over the last 50 years. So when we go back to what Tazra gave the United States cycling community, is that so many more event choices that are more scenic and safe. So in the back of our mind, let's just remember that realistically, Tazra is no longer a first choice or attractive to newer, younger cyclists. So that's the reality, and that's the problem. People say, well, we don't see it in marketing. You're not getting the brochures out. When was the last time you picked up a brochure in a bike shop? Marketing has changed, and we're doing everything that all the other bike tours do and have long-term partners that we work with. But let me just say this, and this is an analogy I use a lot. No matter how much we invest in marketing, if a product or a service isn't attracted or needed by a segment of customers, it won't succeed. So do you see a lot of marketing for payphones, landlines, camera shops, typewriter repair shops, print newspapers? You catch my drift. So all products and services have a life cycle, and we need to accept and look at Tazra realistically. I think there still could be some hope, and there's a lot of little ideas that are floating around. So what's next? And let me also say this: in its current form, it's not financially self-sustaining. So it's being subsidized by GOBA and the other events and things that COP does. It's really just sort of at a break-even point. So what are the next steps? Our board will have a strategic retreat in about a week or so, and really lay a lot of things on the table and look at these numbers and talk about if there are some enhancements, modifications, or if we continue to operate it in its traditional format. So Jerry signed this letter as well as I. There's some core structural challenges that we have to deal with. And when I put this out on the social media realm a couple days ago, I was expecting a lot of, pushback. And while I've gotten a few regular, well, you need to do this or you need to do that. They're not addressing some of the core structural challenges, or they're not operating in the landscape of how bike tours operate here in the 2000s. There's some people that may comment that are still stuck in 1979. So we all have a great deal of passion for Tozerov, and we love it, and we wish it were what it used to be. And if there's any hope of resurrecting it to be a little bit more of what it used to be, we're all ears and looking forward to meeting that challenge. But let me leave with this one comment. We have run the tour the last couple of years, and people have been, their expectations have been exceeded as far as what the experience they've had, other than, the roads are terribly busy and I don't feel safe. But as far as, the rest stops and the food and the accommodations in Portsmouth and the party, it's all been positive, and folks said that they'd come back. But we have a lot of old timers, or long timers, I should say, that just continue to do it because they've always done it. So what's next? I think I've laid it out. And Jerry, do you have any other comments? I just really I think we wanted to level set this and tell people where we are and the challenges we're faced with. And, I think we also put it out there, said if people want to help us, really help us, let us know. And
also, Jeff and I have discussed having some Zoom conversations with Tozerov riders. So, we put the letter out, but now have some conversations about what their thoughts are. It is an iconic ride. But the decline has been 40 to 50 riders per year, pretty consistent. It's those of you who have been around for a long time, you remember the days it was 6,000 and we never knew how many thousands of bandits were riding it also. I make a comparison here. I rode Goba the first time in 1991, and there were 3,000 plus riders on it. You stood in line for everything because we overwhelmed places. Because the Ohio Department of Health passed regulations about 5 or 6 years ago, we can't camp any longer in a fairgrounds with 3,000 people. They have lot sizes you have to have and numbered spaces and all that. And we have evolved and we're able to do that. But our ridership has stabilized at 1,000, 1,100, and it hasn't dropped. And so the demographic is similar. The average age of a Goba rider is between 50 and 55 each year. It varies just a year or two either way. We had some younger people this year. We had some families this year. That was a wonderful thing to see. We're also seeing on Goba a lot of single women that either by themselves or in groups. But the difference is quite obvious for those I've done both events, and the difference is quite obvious. Goba is a tour. There's music in the evening. There's things to do in camp. There's sights to see along the route, and you're not worried about, you know that you have 8 hours or so to do 50 miles, and you can stop and linger and still get your miles in. And so Jeff and I will continue to gather data on Tozerov and try to see if we can come back to the board with some recommendations. It will be discussed each year in November on a Saturday. We take about 4 or 5 hours and have a retreat, and we have a deep discussion about a whole host of issues.
Let me address one other question. I just looked at the chat. We moved to Canal Winchester. Well, because of the challenges with downtown from a cost, hotel perspective, etc. But the very first 2 Tozerovs, the disciples rode from their home in Canal Winchester. So it was back to its roots. So And it was also a way to get out of some of the traffic mess. So Rick, thanks for, there you said it. Thanks for bringing that up. Who knows where we go? Maybe we can still do something in that Scioto River Valley corridor in some form or fashion. We'll see. We're going to have some good discussions, and we're evolving. So this year we continue to do our communications. I hope you guys heard from us on a monthly basis, monthly newsletter, quick things about what's going on so you could look at it quickly. We had the fridge poster, tried to have all of our events on the web page and little calendar tiles, and that weekly email that went out to all of our registered writers. So that's been a core foundation of our operations this year. Let me very quickly talk about 2024 goals. Those 8 tiles at the top, those when you go to the web page, that's really all that's there, except for the calendar tiles at the bottom. Because that's why people come. They're looking for one of those big events, or they're looking for the weeknight training rides, or boating, hiking, backpacking. Now, I said I'd mention boating later, but we're going to continue to focus on these core areas of our organizational activities. We're trying not to make any huge drastic changes. Jerry sometimes says you're thinking too big. It's like, well, we're moving strategically with purpose. But boating has changed. We had partnership with Olentangy Paddle that did flat water tours in the Olentangy River basin in downtown. I think 2 years ago we put 1,200 butts and boats. The moving water people really sort of moved away from our organization and kind of created their own club. So here's the deal. At this point, when people call and inquire about boating, if they're interested, and we're not getting many inquiries at all, but when they come, if they are interested in a flat water experience, we point them to the Olentangy paddle program. And if they are interested in a moving water situation or pool or roll training like that, we send them to the Columbus Paddling Club. Is it, Jerry?
Yes.
Whatever, which is the off branch of our people. So we did have some equipment that we in inventory that we sold, and so we really don't have any more boats or canoes, and people hadn't asked about them in as long as I've been around, and probably then some. So if they really need a boat, we could probably find one for somebody, but just wanted to lay that on the table. Did I address that well, Jerry?
Yes.
Okay. And you say, Jeff, where are the goals for 2025? You got a goal for 2026, but not 2025. We were approached a couple months ago. There is a newly formed commission, Ohio Commission, to celebrate America's 250th sesquicentennial, whatever it is, the 250th anniversary of 1776 will be in 2026. Is that right?
Yes.
And there is an Ohio Commission that's funded by our tax dollars and et cetera, conglomeration of lots of movers and shakers and make it happen kind of people around the state. And they called us and said, tell us about this GOBA thing. And they said, we have an idea. There's a road, Route 250 in Ohio. And we think the 250th anniversary sounds interesting, like there's a connection. And so we've had conversations with them, and our events, a couple of our events will be partnered with this America 250 program in 2026. And I guess I'll just sort of leave it there. It's in its infancy stage, but we have said we're all in. And the great news about this is it's going to receive just publicity all over the place. But I think what it will also do is it will elevate Columbus Outdoor Pursuits, Tazrev, Great Ohio Bike Adventure, Cross Ohio Bike Adventure, OTA. It'll elevate our events and our activities and our bicycle tourism. And if we can roll in some hiking, backpacking, we'll figure out a way. It will elevate it in the minds of the Ohio tourist bureaus, see if we can't get a little credibility as the legitimate tourism destination we are already. So, we're people, it's so few people know that we're ground zero for bike touring in the country with Tazrev. But I mean, you saw the statistic there. People came from 37 states to do GOBA. And they're coming from all over to do the Ohio to Erie Trail Adventure now and that trail. So this partnership, and however it may materialize, is a great opportunity for us to have the light shine on what we do and the value of outdoor activity, and particularly the cycling activity here in Ohio. So I'll just leave it at that. And I think that's more than enough for me, Jerry. Other than, I forgot to mention, we supported, sometimes we don't tell this story enough, but through GOBA, we supported like 26 local organizations. We sent like a dozen Boy Scouts to summer camp through the partnership we had with them, helping set up tents and park cars, and the donations we made to them. All these little organizations, I don't want to call them little, but Rotaries and firehouses, and and then you bring in Tazrev and the churches up in Knox County that we provided a little donation for hosting rest stops. We've supported no less than 35 organizations this year just that partner with us and help us put on our events, but then we in turn help them with some donations for the things they do for us. So
Jeff, I'd like to.
It's not, it's not $1 million to the trail anymore, but we're doing something for somebody.
I don't know if you can see it or not, but this is my 250 pin. When Jeff and I met with the executive director and the staff there, it was a 2-hour meeting. I didn't expect a 2-hour meeting. And it was pretty clear to us early on in the meeting, they were more excited about this than we were, and we were very excited. We're going to have to figure out something with registration. It's going to sell out. And so we will, that's a good problem to have. Jeff, you're not going to reveal where we're going for 2024 GOBA?
Well, I told them there'd be donuts. It's going to be the donut trail.
And the donut trail is where?
It's in Southwest Ohio.
Okay. All right.
And we might catch a glimpse of some Ram riders coming through.
Yeah.
It's some of the communities are familiar, others are a little new, but the great thing about 2026 is there are going to be all kinds of demonstrations and presentations from all these historic things that happened in these places that we're going to be smack in the middle of. It's going to be, you think you see interesting things on GOBA and historic sites and whatnot. It's going to be on steroids in 2026. Can I use that? Steroids? You get my drift.
Hey, Jeff, can I interrupt?
Yes.
Just, I don't know if you're getting ready to close, but the Tipperies had a question about training, and I wasn't quite sure what the question was, so maybe we could answer. Maybe, could you guys unmute and ask that question again?
Yeah,
That was a Bill question.
that was, there are a lot of weekly rides that Rick leads and all that. and there are weekend rides, and they're all just training rides, and they all try and climb more hills, and they all try and push pace lines so that you can get higher speeds. Are we looking at somebody that's aging out like I am and just wants to ride? I don't want to do 15 miles an hour. I don't want to do 20 miles an hour, but I also don't want to do just 10 miles and go home. Rides that, I mean, there's beautiful areas around. I ride a lot of them on my own. Average between 10 and 13 miles per hour, depending on hills. I'm out there for 3-4 hours, but I don't care. Is there an organization that supports that?
Yeah, and I think we have done more of that this year with listing the steady pedaling, the Wednesday morning trail ride, the Monday morning retirees ride. If you go read the descriptions on all those rides, you'll see a few that come close to what you're referencing, Bill. But I highly encourage you to, I shouldn't say it that way. I should nudge you to say, why don't you come to Ride Leader training and we'll team you up with somebody, and maybe you can figure out how to offer that sort of creature for others like you.
I also like to add on I mean, it's not all every week, but the cycling series, we've tried to have the 30-mile option available as a group, and we don't go very fast. But yeah, I've done steady pedaler rides. They're nice and easy pace. Some of the other groups are fast too, so I can deal with the steady pedaler. So
yeah, I've done the retiree ride a couple times, and again, I'm on the back end trying to chase everybody down because they group up and they know the roads because they're riding the same route the same week after week. I realize that I'm a unique animal in the fact that I want to go see what's over that next hill. I know I don't want to go to Granville and catch the same diner that I did last week. And nothing against the riders. I mean, a couple times I had problems that I didn't understand, and people gave up their enjoyment and their ride with the group to drop back and pull me along. And I appreciate that.
Hey, Bill, why don't you reach out to me separately? But I might also mention the Scioto Club, the Sunday ride. They started at a different location every week, and they always offered a short route, medium route, and I went to a few, and it's a nice group of folks and pretty low key. So there's stuff out there, and maybe
is this stuff on the site.
Yeah, maybe there's a need that you could help us fill.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay, I would like to thank everyone who attended. Our last item on the agenda is we always open this to nominations of folks who would like to be on the board. Our board is a volunteer board, and the question I receive is, what do you expect of a volunteer? One, you're a member of the organization. Two, you attend board meetings. And we don't meet every month. And if you want to ask us specifically, we meet about 6 times per year. And we'll meet if we have an emergency situation where we have to make a decision. We have one in-person meeting for sure, and that will be the board retreat in November. But most meetings are via Zoom. We have found that Zoom meetings start on time. Everybody is there, and we move through the business quite quickly. It is rare that we have a meeting. They go about 90 minutes. And then we also ask is that you do something to volunteer. The board members who are here all volunteer. We're not asking this to be a part-time job, but you give some time during the year to help out with the organization. So what we have here is there any nominations to be on the board? You can nominate yourself. Okay, we don't have any. What we do during the year is if we have vacancies on the board, the president can offer some folks to the the board for consideration, and then the board can vote, and that person will then be on the board. So I thank you all so much for being here today. We really appreciate it. We all feel much better about post-COVID and what we've been able to do and outdoor experiences we provide for folks. It's what I really find wonderful about the organization, and I should remind you, many of you know this story, but in 1992, my wife and I, with part of our newly blended family, honeymooned on Goba, and we slept in a tent about 12 inches from our children. So it was a very romantic week that we had on Goba. But it's been a large part of our lives in terms of riding, and now we've volunteered the past several years with food stops. And anyone have any final questions? Stick around. Jeff and I will stay and be able to open up the mics and talk. And if you don't, it's have a wonderful evening.
Thanks for everybody's support throughout the year.
Thanks for doing this. This is wonderful.
Volunteer activity or financial or otherwise.
I do want to say that the winter getaway at the Wilderness Lodge, which we've done for years and years and years, we're attempting to get it going again for President's Day weekend, and it's in progress right now. And bring your ideas as to what you want to do. You can be a biker, but we also want to offer things other than biking, like backpacking and hiking and getting outside. And that's how we ended up with the 21 Challenge last year, because Glenn Beachy, a former president of COP, came and said, why don't we try the 21 Challenge again? So come bring your ideas. It's a lot of fun, and we will raise a little bit of extra money, which will help cover the costs of backpacking and hiking and all that good stuff.
And the winter getaway sold out last year, and it will sell out again this year.
Absolutely. Yeah, we got to get that information up. I'm looking forward to making sure we've got, we rent the whole place now, and it's really a lot of fun. And even last year, everybody loved it, and we had almost no snow. So there was a lot of hiking, but a lot
in the mud.
In the mud. Yeah. So good. So again, thanks to everybody. I'm so appreciative of everyone who is trying to make sure that, again, the fact that we survived COVID is amazing, and hats off to Jerry and Jeff and Trish and others who made that happen. And Lindsay has been really phenomenal. I'm so glad you're on the board. And Penny had bike packing this year. She got bike packing. You had at least 2 outdoor bike packing trips that were tremendously successful. We need more. We need more people to come and say, I have this area of expertise, and I want to share it with others. So please be a part of COP. Let's make it happen for 2024.
It was mentioned earlier that we're looking at actually running 2 of the OTAs this year. I've already worked with Jerry, and we picked the dates for it. The spring OTA will go out on Saturday before Mother's Day, and the fall OTA will go out the first week of October.
Fantastic.
So if any of you want to come along, either as volunteers or riders, we'll have all that information up by Thanksgiving, I believe.
That's fantastic. Thanks so much, Mike. That's just great stuff.
The Ohio Dairy Trail Foundation came to us and wanted us to take over their Tom Moffett ride. That ride began when I was still the executive director of the foundation, and we started with 12 folks, experimented, it was successful. They took it over. It was named the Tom Moffett ride when Tom was the board president, unexpectedly died. And they just said, we're done. We don't want to do it anymore. And you folks know how to put bicycle rides together. And so we were happy to take it over. So we now have a May and an October event. And we have the really added value is we have people who are not coming from out of state to run the tour. We're Ohio folks who really understand how that trail was built over 30 years.
Right.
Yeah, it's a unique opportunity for all of us here in Ohio. This year, there were, I believe, 17 operators that did like 24 or 25 rides on the trail. And with me sitting here in London, Ohio, I got to meet several of the groups as they came through. I actually rode back in from Cedarville with two groups that were on the trail simultaneously. It was Adventure Cycling and Wilderness. I can never make their name come out right. They're the ones that are Wilderness Adventures. And it was unique because they were two completely different groups demographically. The Adventure Cycling, they were self-contained. They did have a SAG truck that carried some stuff, but they were pretty much self-contained. And the Wilderness Adventures, they ran their ride pretty much like mine, where, you know, we were at certain hotels through the ride. I'm actually looking at changing the next to last day to, instead of staying in Akron, because very few people took advantage of riding the train, riding up to Peninsula and taking the train back. I think I'm going to go on to Rockside Road. That way Saturday finishes earlier, and we've got contacts in Cleveland that would like to run a side route that goes downtown Cleveland and then out to the waterfront to meet up with us. So we're looking at some different things with the ride.
Mike, what was the week in October again?
It's the first week. It's actually hang on, let me look. I got the notes right here. It's it'll start on the 5th down in Cincinnati and end on the 12th up in Cleveland.
Thank you.
I think it'll be a good time because we'll hit some of the early fall colors in the northern part of the state. I'm going to tell on you, Jerry. I actually wanted to run it a week later, and he thought it would be too cold.
I can't let this go, Mike, without saying that you know that Tosserve has roots. Adventure Cycling's roots are from Tosserve. Charlie Pace and Greg Seifert involved with Adventure Cycling. So you know, we are the genesis in many ways of Adventure Cycling, which is very cool. Yep. I
rode my first ride with them clear back in '95 when they were still Bike Centennial. And I did Great Parks North from Missoula, Montana to Jasper, Alberta, Canada. They're a great group of people. I've also done Cycle Utah with them. And the one that I should have defined the name a little better was Great Lakes Relaxed. Long days on that ride were 39 miles.
Yeah, you were very relaxed.
Oh, it was very relaxed. Where's the rest of the mileage? So anyway, that's my update for OTA. So, and if any of you are looking to volunteer, especially the October ride, I'm short of volunteers for it. Okay, that's the end of my speech.
Thank you. Well, folks, thank you so much. See you next October. We hope before then, though. And if anyone here is interested in thinking about wanting to come on the board, you can give me a call at 614-783-5809. That's 783-5809. We can maybe meet for coffee or have a phone conversation to learn more about it.
Coffee. Hey, want to have a cup of coffee?
Thanks so much.